Still early into this big bold year that is 2022, we have plenty to get excited about in the coming year. But whilst it's always good to look forward, it's also worth taking a peek back into recent history to find any gems you might have missed out on. In recent years, we've had a pretty good serving of fresh, quality horror, so it definitely wasn't much of a task to find a few that I would recommend in case you haven't seen them. So I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are the 10 best recent horror movies you have to see. 10. The House. Stepping away from the usual gore and guts that the uninitiated may expect from every horror, The House is a fascinating tale told in 3 parts, all created through stop-motion animation, certainly erring more on the side of thriller or maybe creepy, intriguing think piece. This concise 90-minute masterpiece splits its time between 3 locations, stories, and sets of characters. It would be easy to miss because of its rather niche appeal. There isn't exactly a giant market for British stop-motion anthology thriller movies, which is hard to believe, right? Now, this one is heavy on allegory, so if you're not up for having a big think on what you've just watched, then maybe give it a miss. Each story has meanings that it buries below the surface, just at varying levels. You're left to your own devices to reach conclusions about what it all means, and whilst that isn't for everyone, I thought it was quite beautiful. 9. Scream. Big names, big hype, Scream made its triumphant return this year in January, with original cast members reappearing to pick things up 25 years after Billy and Stu's original spree. Ghostface is up and at it again, doing what Ghostface does best: murder. It's always a risk to revisit a beloved IP like Scream because you can never quite recapture the charm that hooked people in the first place. Fortunately for the team behind Scream's return, it seemed that the public was ready for their latest fix of Ghostface. Audiences praised the fun kills, tongue-in-cheek dialogue, and fan-pleasing character resurrections. We were right to manage our expectations to avoid being let down, and given the current climate that remains so remake-heavy, we'd be wise to continue doing that. But Scream actually rewarded the believers with an enjoyable, meta-tinged horror romp that was a welcome addition to the franchise. 8. Slapface. The juvenile title refers to a game played by protagonist Lucas and his older brother, the two of them having been left to care for themselves after the death of their parents. As Lucas struggles with bullying from both his older brother and his so-called friends, he comes to befriend a strange, monstrous being hiding out in an old abandoned building near their home. It's a mix of horror and coming of age, with the monster at its heart serving more as a vehicle for very real horrors than a cliched forest foe. Grief, abuse, and isolations are the themes threaded throughout this slow-burning piece, with standout performances from August Maturo as Lucas and Libby Bearer, who you may recognise from 2019's home invasion horror I See You, as the one caring adult in his life, his older brother's girlfriend Anna. The production values for sure aren't the highest you've ever seen, but they're also by no means the lowest, and the filmmakers did well to create such an atmosphere with what tools they had available. What it lacks in the budget department, it makes up for in charm. It's kind of almost like E.T. if Andy was an orphan and E.T. killed local dogs. 7. CANDYMAN. Sharing its name with its 1992 predecessor, this spiritual sequel from the immensely talented Nia DaCosta stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II in the reinvigorated titular role. CANDYMAN continues to haunt Cabrini Green so many years after the bonfire incident, and as the area is slowly engulfed by the greedy mouth of gentrification, artist Anthony McCoy sets out to find inspiration in its myths. Taking the issues raised by the original and modernising them, bringing them confidently into the present day, the film allows for a whole new generation of horror lovers to enjoy the mythos of the Candyman. With DaCosta at the helm and fan favourite fella Jordan Peele earning credits for both the screenplay and the production, the film has a strong backing of talented filmmakers. Not only is the film visually appealing, and trust me, it really is, but the performances strike a great balance between modern satire and old-school terror. It refreshes, enhances, and deepens the lore behind its predecessor whilst bringing something fresh and new to the table, making it quite the successful sequel indeed. 6. Boris Karloff. The man behind the monster. This entry is a little something different in that it's actually a non-fiction piece. As the title suggests, this feature documentary explores the life and achievements of world-renowned monster actor Boris Karloff, best known as the man who personified and defined the image of Frankenstein's monster. Currently sitting at 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, the film has been met with wide acclaim, praised for its in-depth look at Karloff's journey and the fascinating interview commentary from such legends as John Landis and Guillermo del Toro. it's easy to forget the lives of the people behind our favourite horror films and characters. Karloff was a pioneer in his performances, defining for generations what to expect from certain characters and stories, and it's actually fascinating to then hear about his own personal story all the same. Archival footage, interviews, and detailed biographical facts underpin this solid, interesting peek into the life of one of Hollywood's favourite horror actors. If you want a break from the all-out blood, gore, and intensity of horror's fiction, this could be the film for you. 5. Halloween Kills. It's another of those big names that I simply could not exclude from the list. The Halloween franchise gave us its latest installment in September of 2021, leaving just one film in the Ultimate Trilogy left to close everything up. Sequel to 2018's Halloween reboot, Halloween Kills sees Michael Myers return to Haddonfield. Obviously, with all new entrants to a beloved franchise, there are gonna be a few people who are left dissatisfied. However, for the most part, it seemed that feedback on this flick was positive. The action was engaging, the characters were able to make us care about them still, and Myers was just as unhinged and horrifying as ever. Its thoughtful aesthetics and community-centric storyline seem to separate it by a million miles from the franchise's first offering, but at the same time there's just enough there to keep it firmly rooted in the canon and its mythos. If the original Halloween wasn't for you, maybe it was too campy or you just didn't like anything made before 2018, give the reboots a try. You might see something you like. 4. Lamb. People got excited for this movie from the moment they saw the unnerving picture previews, and we finally got our hands on it back in December of 2021. This Icelandic feature is drenched in atmosphere, set against a foggy rural backdrop where our farmer protagonists find themselves in a totally unexpected situation. One of their sheep births a human-sheep hybrid, and after taking it in and beginning to raise it as their child, they find that things aren't going to be simple. In fairness though, no part of that previous sentence should lead you to thinking the situation would be simple. This is another slow burner, one that you have to completely sink into to get the most out of. Both human interpersonal dramas and ones of the more supernatural kind unfold, giving audiences the best of both worlds. In the English-speaking sphere, we're usually so quick to dismiss anything in another language, but Lamb is not to be sniffed at. As Bong Joon-ho famously said at the Oscars, once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you'll be introduced to so many more amazing films. 3. Speak No Evil. This 2022 offering has been praised as depraved and a must-see for horror fans. Another international offering, Speak No Evil, follows a Dutch family who find themselves paired up with another family they met on holiday and not feeling too good about it. Sitting around 90 minutes in runtime, this unnerving little number is as concise as it is unique. It's certainly no comedy, but undeniably a great satire, making light of how our ingrained need to be polite and civil doesn't always serve us. In its pleasant middle-class setting, with tranquil views and a summer holiday vibe, a few critics have noted its tonal similarity to Michael Haneke's acclaimed Funny Games. Anyone who's familiar with that old chestnut knows it's not blood, guts, and gore that makes it scary. It's the violation of the norms, the continual sense of dread, and the complete unpredictability of it all. If you can get to the point where people are comparing your film to one of the finest psychological slow burners out there, then I'd say that's a good place to be. 2. TITANE. This one admittedly was hard to miss at its prime. If you haven't watched it, then you've certainly heard about it, not least because of all the awards and nominations it received, but because of the mainstream media being so thoroughly shocked and maybe slightly appalled by that. Horror? In my awards ceremonies, on my TV? We simply can't be having that, they all cried. Well, that's too bad, I say. Now watch this woman f her car. TITANE follows serial killer and carophile Alexia as she goes about her weird little life. This exact weirdness is what propelled the film to international acclaim, with critics likening its bizarre body horror nature to some of the biggest names in the genre, including David Cronenberg. It is an acquired taste, there's no denying that. But then again, so much of horror is. If you want to be able to flex on people about your elite, sophisticated taste in films, then TITANE should be right up your alley. 1. Malignant. Definitely one of the bigger names on this list, I would be remiss not to include James Wan's latest horror offering. The film follows Madison, a woman who finds herself suddenly burdened with a psychic link to a murderer, watching kills unfold in real time. It sounds like a pretty rogue idea to start with, but there's nothing that can prepare you for just how crazy it gets. If you've managed to avoid spoilers for the big twist this long, then congratulations, because you're in for a wonderful surprise. The film's tone harkens back to the schlocky, campy style of 90s slashers, slashers, with the script unafraid to wink at its own cliches. The plot is bonkers, the kills are gory and beyond entertaining, and throughout you can really sense Wan's love for the genre. We've come to expect quality from Wan, and he delivered once again with this. It's a movie that gets better the longer you let it brew in your mind, so if you missed out on this one then you better get on it quick. And with that, we've reached the end of this list of the 10 best recent horror movies you have to see. Have you seen anything else really good that was released recently? Then let us know in the comments below. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. As always, I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.